Let me check. What do you think? Is this showing or is this telling how much of it is which? We've described this journey as one of us becoming New York Times bestselling authors. To work towards that, we've been reading more, and I will be sharing later today some of the things that I have discovered from reading a New York Times bestselling author. But first, we're going to talk about some things that we've discovered from participating in writers' groups online or on Zoom. I'll let Nathan share first what he discovered this week.
So last night, we both attended a Zoom writers group meeting, and there were people from all over the United States, and I think one even from Australia.
Yes.
And one of the things that the leader of that group mentioned is that once you have ink on paper and your book is published and you have the physical copy in your hands, you're 10% done with your work. And that was kind of overwhelming because we're seeing how much work just getting to that point is.
Barely even starting.
Right.
We haven't even put words to pixels yet,
right.
Let alone ink on paper.
Right. But the other 90% is marketing your book, finding people to buy it, getting it in bookstores, letting people know about your book so that they can even decide if they want to buy it.
Right.
And one of the things that we're trying to do is get a little bit of a head start on that 90%. And some of the way we're doing that is with this YouTube channel, getting our message out and our journey out. So by the time our book is complete, hopefully we have a good number of people who already know about us and our book. But we're also looking at some other ways that we could possibly get ourselves and our book out there before we're even complete with it. And we don't have any concrete ideas for that yet, but it is something that we're looking into so we can get a head start on the biggest hurdle, the biggest problem in getting your book sold.
Right. So one of the other things that we've been doing, I've been participating in, or at least lurking in some online forums, some Facebook groups, and I discovered somebody shared an explanation of the show, don't tell philosophy of storytelling that I think is really helpful to take it away from an analytical, let me check. What do you think? Is this showing or is this telling how much of it is which? But she described it this way. She said, your goal as an author is to allow the reader to figure things out for themselves rather than having to trust you that things are the way that you say they are. Let them see that they are that way rather than just having to trust you. I think that was a really good way to look at it, to say, does this feel like I'm trusting the reader, or does this feel like I'm expecting the reader to trust me? I think that was helpful.
Yes. One of the things that we've looked at, that as we've looked into our fiction books that we've been reading, that you mentioned earlier, the books that I've been reading right now are the Harry Potter series. I have not read those before. I have not seen the movies before. So this is a new experience for me looking through those. I've finished the first book. I'm about a quarter of the way through the second book right now. And one of the things that has stuck out to me is, at least in this book and a quarter that I've read, how little of it is plot focused. Now, there is some plot in it, and I think as the saga goes along, that series as a whole has more plot. I don't know, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but a lot of the book is spent on world building and character building. And right now we're spending a lot of our energy figuring out our plot for our book. But one of the important things is that character building and that world building. We can't just rely on our plot to carry our story and to carry our book. And so seeing that play out in a wildly successful series has kind of changed the way that I view our process.
And I think there's a caution to that also, in that in the Facebook groups that I've been participating in, I have seen a lot of criticism. Those who are true aficionados of science fiction or of fantasy look at a work like the Harry Potter series and they see it as shallow and weak in plot, because those who are really into a particular genre, they crave that complex plot. It's the depth that is really appealing to them.
Right. And we need to find our balance in that. For our first book, how in depth do we want to go versus how accessible do we want it to be? And then especially for the saga that we want to write later, how deep and how accessible, because we have a message there that we want to get out to as many people as possible. And so finding that balance between making it in depth, making it entertaining, making it thought-provoking, and getting hopefully both the people who are the hardcore science fiction fans and the people who aren't as much sci-fi fans and kind of want that escape in a book, but figuring out where do we walk that line of depth versus fun and entertainment.
Right. And that's where having the skill of a good craftsman author is going to be important. So we said we were going to share a little bit about what I've seen in a New York Times bestselling author's work. At the recommendation of, I don't know how many people, several people, I have begun reading the Mistborn series from Brandon Sanderson. And one of the things that I found, I just read the prologue and the first 2 chapters, but when it comes to that world building, the scene building, helping us to understand that world, I noticed something very interesting about how he shows without telling. He describes characters taking advantage of a characteristic of the world as if we, the reader, already understood how it works, even though we don't. An example of this, he talks about a character, and she needed to burn some of her luck, but she had to be careful because she couldn't burn too much because she needed to save it for later. And as a reader first approaching this, what do you mean burn luck? I'm just going to have to trust that you'll explain that later, or I'll be able to discover it. Then later, other characters were talking about that first character, explaining that, well, of course she is able to replenish her luck because of the trace minerals in the water. Okay. No explanation yet, but trace minerals in the water, so they must provide something that allows her to burn the luck. And then the third piece is that in a different area of the story, they described some things that give the impression that the ability to burn the minerals and produce luck is something that is genetically passed down. So those 3 pieces, sometimes as a reader, I can get impatient and I want to understand all, but he, as a master craftsman author, was able to balance dripping just enough of the detail in the description of what's happening that we're able to start piecing together how the world works. He never stopped and said, here, let me explain this to you.
And one of the things that he is showing is not just how this aspect of the world works, but he's also showing you can trust me as the author to provide you the information that you need when you need it. You don't need to worry about figuring out how this all works on your own.
And this is something that, as I was analyzing that, realizing I am not skilled at this. This is going to take some work. This is going to take some practice. This ability to strike that balance between giving you just enough that you're not frustrated in the right order that you can piece together how everything works. That is the mark of an author skilled at his craft. I would like to invite you, as the viewer of this video, to share in your comments, what is another mark of a skilled craftsman that shows that an author is really good at being a New York Times best-selling author or having that level of quality? Look forward to hearing your comments, and we will see you again next week.